I'm here with Iain Heggie, who is the writer for Queen of Lucky People. Hi Iain.
Hi Susie.
So, what is Lucky People? Let's start with that.
Lucky People is the name of a website. Not a website, what am I talking about? It shows you how much I know. Lucky People is the name of a social networking site, a kind of internet thing. Might have been called Facebook if I wasn't scared.
Yeah. May or may not have been influenced by,
Well, also they might have come and got me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to wake up with Mark at the door. So what's his name? Mark
Zuckerberg, yeah.
I wouldn't want him to be knocking my door.
No. So.
Anyway, it's a social networking site.
Yeah.
And the name came from the old Barbra Streisand song, People. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world.
Oh, is that where it came from?
That's where it came from.
That is interesting. So tell us a bit, so it's a monologue that you've written,
Yes.
And it's a woman who spends a lot of her time on Lucky People.
Yes.
So where did you get the idea from? Are you a social networker or?
Off and on, I think. But I probably abuse it. I don't think I use it for the normal reasons.
Right.
I use it as a sort of platform to write stuff mostly, which I think is a distortion of what it was intended for. I mean, it's very flexible, isn't it? That's part of it. But actually, it goes back quite a long time. It was about really before social networking got underway, around about 2004, 2005. I was beginning to be kind of aware of, just with email and all that, how in lots of ways the internet's very unsatisfactory for all the practical problems it solves, and I was beginning, one or two of the kind of usual things had happened. The email had gone to the wrong person, or you'd forgotten to check what's further down, you said the wrong thing, and then nowadays, because no one ever tells you, you don't know, did they read it, did they not? So I was beginning to be aware of that, and the kind of all the stories about people getting into trouble with it, and it didn't really, for one reason or another, it didn't really come to anything until social networking got underway, and I began to sort of be aware, all these new worlds that we create are kind of sold to us as the answer, and that then when I first started, occasionally you would say something and people would be upset, and you'd think, I didn't mean that, and so then you have to start to master the tone, and you have to start to...
Because also there's a way people upsell themselves on social networking sites as well, so look at this, I'm so happy, successful, funny.
And you're kind of aware of how all the crude messages, I don't mean dirty messages, I mean crude messages that social networking gives out, what people like, what they don't like, what they contribute to a thread, how they seek support or sympathy, or these are all important human needs, no one would decry that, but in some ways social networking makes it all a bit crude, and but there's other things like you're suddenly in touch with people that you haven't seen for 20 years.
And you can keep in touch with people that further distances away than you would ordinarily, and it makes,
But I have to say, nearly all of my reunions have not lasted very long. But I think it's not just a convenience, it's redefining how we are with each other. And people having to learn, and it's different for people who are brought up with it, but as older people having to learn completely new skills about how to relate to people.
The character Patrice is a slightly older character, so it's something that she has learned and become fascinated by, or maybe almost upset. Recently it's become a kind of lifeline for her, and then
it's not so perfect. It turns out, there's things you can't do, there's rules or unwritten rules, you have to find out what they are, how willing are you to bend yourself to the unstated rules. Most social rules are unstated and they're constantly changing. But I think it's probably quite a big leap to find out the stuff. occasionally you'll see on Facebook people have terrible rows and people have never met each other.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, about something, and then you realise it's kind of war, and then in a funny way the stakes are quite high because people are having an argument. And it's semi-public at least.
Yeah.
You know, they know it. So then there's the whole thing of, I don't want to lose face, and I don't want to lose this fight, and then instead of discussing the issue, it becomes about that.
There's quite a lot of humour in it. There's quite a lot of humour in the play. You can hear the audience really identifying with that kind of humorous aspect of, I guess, that world of social networking and what's in and what's not, and how you get excited about, or what what the status is. You could definitely tell people identifying with the audience with that.
And there was a kind of recognition in the laughter.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, funnily you should say that, Susie, because one of my, writers always have fears about their babies, but one of my fears was I didn't really know what percentage of the public know enough about social networking. Because you're always, like my first play, it was probably at the Glasgow, was set in a health club, and so part of your thinking was how many people go to one, do they know the conventions, well, how much can I assume about what they'll know? So I felt the same about this. I mean, most comedies are really an attack on an a charming, delightful attack on an institution. And as Holy Health Glasgow was, if you like, an attack on health as a notion and an idea. It was also about, the social institution of the health club. But and this was about the social networking part of the internet, mostly. And so, to a certain extent, comedy is always a benign attack, and so the jokes all come from cutting something down to size. And people, and the old thing is that at the point where you make the joke is the point where the audience most needs that to be discovered for them. You know what I mean? That's when a joke is really pregnant. So, and that's beyond the kind of universal taboos and jokes about body parts and all that stuff. So it's what I was doing with this, to a certain extent. Patrice is discovering a kind of that social networking can seem like an avenue to explore how popular you are. And she doesn't even know that at first, she has to discover that gradually. And then it becomes, actually, every time she posts something, there's an element of gamble. Sometimes people won't like it, sometimes they'll love it, and as she's learning the rules as she goes, that's where the stakes come from. She doesn't know always what the reaction's going to be.
Were you in the rehearsal room much? Because it's a monologue, so there's the actress Eileen Nichols and the director Emma Callender. Yeah. So it's quite, I imagine it's quite an intense rehearsal period. Were you in and out, or did you leave them to get on with it?
You kind of learn about that, I think, with experience. To a certain, I think you kind of learn that there's a limit to how helpful you can be.
Especially in a short
rehearsal period, the new relations are being set up, and so therefore, kind of, to a large extent, it's kind of fait accompli. And so you kind of want to be guided by, the actor and the director, and that's particularly challenging in a way when it's a one-person show, because sometimes, the two people in the room can be too intense. But on the other hand, the writer going around all the time can put everyone under too much pressure because they think you're judging. They can't not think that. It's human, but a lot of the time you think, is this writing right? Is it overwritten? Is it underwritten? So with this one, I felt, you always feel this, but I felt that I was quite far ahead in terms of the amount of rewriting that was needed in rehearsal. And indeed, we'd already done a couple of quite heavy cutting sessions, and I'm always very good about some restructuring towards the end. And also I started to use my word count as a rough measure of length, and my previous one-person short mathematics lawyer finally was just over 8,000 words and did its French slot under an hour, came down to about 55 I think in the course of the run. So it was already Queen of Liverpool was quite a bit shorter. So we thought by the end of the first week, when we were down to the under 7,000 words, no problem. But then I got an emergency call late in the second week. Shows do come speed up in front of an audience, so it's tricky, particularly for an environment or more where you pretty much have to get the deadline from the first day. So unfortunately there was some last minute cutting, and I thought it's best just to leave them to get on with it. Because they're the ones that got to survive with it this week.
So what else have you been working on? Have you got other ideas in the pipeline?
Well, hopefully I gave up teaching 2 years ago on my final year of students. 3 of them volunteered to do my first piece that's been based on improvisation, and I kind of for a while wanted to do a one-man version, a modern version of Hamlet. And I thought, yes, okay, but you're several decades older than Hamlet, and so I asked some students if they wanted to do this project, and so we improvised for a few months, 1 night a week, and at the end of that process, it's the first time I've ever done this, at the end of that process I had about 250 pages of writing to edit down, so the first draft was more or less just editing all the improvisation work, and then that did the job. Because of the age gap, I thought, I'm too far away now from that age, I'll need some help, and that's why I got them in. Yes. So, but then having watched them improvise and done all the editing, I found that I was, for all the gaps, improvisation won't take you everywhere, there was gaps in the story and bits missed and all that, so I found I was able to kind of mimic them to fill in the gaps, and then it's quite an unusual process of editing after that, when I'd come in and re-improvise sometimes. So hopefully that will choose what we're doing in the autumn. It's called Tragic. Also I've written one of the little monologues for the Dear Scotland project, which is on at the National Portrait Gallery from late next week for a week and a half. It's I think I'm not allowed to say.
Well, I was just going to say, you didn't write about that. I don't know
I'm
whether...
not quite sure. I think they wanted, the publicity people didn't want us to say, so I'm not going to say.
Okay, I'm going to ask you when the camera stops.
But that was fascinating because I was able to do that. I went to the gallery one day and looked around. It was kind of obvious who I would do because I'd done a lot of research into this person for another project. So it was fairly easy, and then I just had to find out the 5-minute monologue idea, and I found it quite quickly by going online, and then there was this lovely visual idea just that I worked from. Yeah, it's like a gift actually. And I've done a first, I think, Scottish version of Laudettes for NTS, so huge cast list, they'll need to save up the pennies to do it. I have no idea when they'll do that.
Not this year, but yeah.
No, definitely not this year. It's the Gorky play set in a doss house, so it's a kind of Scottish version of it.
Brilliant.
And I'm busy with Two-Hander and another about teaching.
Well that's it.
But not your Oleana and John McKnight's play from the other time. It's not student teachers, teachers.
Interesting.
So I hope to finish that this year as well.
That's loads of stuff.
Giving up teaching.
Yeah, that's what.
Giving up teaching. Yes. And I've also got the office. So for the first couple of years after giving up teaching, I was able to go somewhere.
Go somewhere and work.
Yeah.
Which eventually I think this.
Yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Good. Well, thanks for
Thank
that.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.